Welcome back to I Did This Instead of Killing Myself, a stand-up comedy and lifestyle podcast I host out of my apartment. We are on episode 30. We're based in Greenville, South Carolina. Interview comedians in the local stand-up scene. I'm your host, David Bakker. It is the week of November 15th, and I want to give a shout-out to lazy people. This is like a lazy time of year. My association with this time of year is related to football season ending. When I played in high school and in college, D2, Hillsdale, what up? We usually didn't play. We usually were finishing up around November. And it was such a relief to finish practice for the last time, and you didn't have anything, and I would just take a nap in the afternoon, wouldn't set an alarm, you'd wake up randomly, and you'd have maybe you'd have Christmas lights around your dorm, and you'd just be totally relaxed and unconcerned with having to do any more football stuff. Classes weren't too stressful. So yeah, I think I just had a lazy nap today. I'm recording this on a Sunday, and I'll give a shout out to anybody who's feeling a little bit burned out. And yeah, take a nap and don't set an alarm if you can, and just unwind. Wear sweats. It's sweats weather. Yeah. So, and if you want, turn on an episode of I Did This Instead of Killing Myself. Hopefully it's something decent to fall asleep to. But yeah, it's such a good time to do that too. Like right before Thanksgiving, or on Thanksgiving, that's in a couple weeks, but, Thanksgiving, my favorite thing to do is just gorge myself with food, just eat a ton of food, and then, plenty of turkey, and then drift in and out of consciousness while you're watching the Lions get their ass kicked in a football game, which I will be doing in a couple of weeks. So shout out to lazy people. Being lazy has too much of a bad connotation, I think. It's not always bad. Sometimes you need to be lazy, and I'm being lazy today. I'm going to still do this episode, though, and, it is Monday, so be lazy, but if you have stuff to do, I hope you enjoy listening to this episode. My guest today is Robert Taylor. Robert Taylor is a tall drink of water, former Marine, ex-military, great guy, very funny comic out of Columbia, South Carolina. His delivery is very dry, very direct, how you'd expect a serviceman to do stand-up comedy. He works very hard at writing jokes that are just savagely funny, very dark, very edgy. And we had a great conversation. We talked about his background, how he got into stand-up comedy, his background as a basketball coach. I've done some coaching in the past, so we talked a lot about coaching, talked about the history of stand-up comedy, kind of his influences, and a lot more. So hope you enjoyed my interview with Robert. Before we get into the interview, though, here's what's going on this week in local comedy. The week of November 15th, 2021. So to begin, we have our open mic starting tonight at Coffee Underground, 7 o'clock, hosted by Craig Holcomb and No Expectations Comedy. Get there a little before 7 to get on the list. Immediately following that, we have All Jokes Aside, hosted by Dante Anderson at Habiba's Mediterranean Restaurant. That's going to start at around 8:30. We may have a contest there. Otherwise, come bring your open mic material. On Wednesday, we have the Radio Room open mic starting at 8 o'clock, hosted by Adam Schulte. Get there a little bit before that. I'm also going to shout out a show that I'm going to be on. I'm going to be in Charlotte. Host Don Garrett was gracious enough to invite me. This is a show, World of Laughs, and it's at the World of Beer on 210 East Trade Street in Charlotte. right downtown. So it's at the World of Beer. Doors open at 7, showtime at 8 o'clock. That's going to be on Wednesday. I'll be performing there. Don Garrett is hosting. Michael Mack will be performing. And then we also have the Certified Comics, which is T-Link, Nestor Vasquez, Michael Garrick, and Mr. Dwayne Nettles. So that's the show on Wednesday. On Thursday, we have All Jokes Aside. Jokes Out Loud at the Comedy Zone. That's going to be starting at 8 o'clock, $10 cover there. And hope you all come out. That's our local Greenville open mic. And then this Friday through Sunday, we have a celebrity comedian, Corey Holcomb, will be at the Comedy Zone. 2 shows on Friday at 7 and 9:30. 2 shows on Saturday at 6 and 9:30. And 1 show on Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. It's Corey Holcomb at the Comedy Zone. Go to greenvillecomedyzone.com for tickets. All right, that's it for local comedy. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Be lazy. Take a nap. And, I hope you enjoy my interview with Robert Taylor. Here it is.
On stage, everybody started looking and laughing, and she didn't know what the hell I was doing. Whatever.
Robert Taylor, welcome to the show.
Oh, we're rolling?
We are. We just start right into it. I actually wanted you to hear that full story. You almost got
Don't play that one.
Robert Taylor is telling the story about how a fellow comic's wife almost wanted to beat him up. We don't have to say the name, but
yeah, I think she's his wife.
Yeah,
his lady.
A lady. What happened? You said something.
Oh no. I was telling a racial joke, and she's racial, but it wasn't racist. It was just racial, and
sure,
she couldn't believe I was telling it, and she yelled something out from the back. So I just
Well, that'll happen in comedy.
Yeah.
So you have a guest today, Robert Taylor. His style of comedy is I'm going to describe it first, and then you tell me if it's right. But I think it's kind of like very dry, edgy, dark, and hilarious.
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4.
I don't know about hilarious, but yeah, I guess it is. That's about it. Dry, edge, and darky.
Yeah. I mean, who were your comic like inspirations like that you enjoy and kind of like helped inform your style?
Well, early on, I'm a little bit older than you are. We didn't have internet, but early on, we listened to albums.
Okay.
Because we didn't have Comedy Central and all that stuff. So really, the only time you would see stand-up comics were on late night TV. Like on Johnny Carson or something, and it had to be all clean.
That's right.
And then HBO came out, and before HBO came out, I liked George Carlin, Red Fox, Richard Pryor, and those guys like that. And you'd see them on primetime TV on the late night shows, but you didn't see their good stuff. You had to get the albums to see that. And then once HBO came out with the Rodney Dangerfield special. Then you got to see Rodney Dangerfield. He was a late starter, so he didn't have albums.
That's right.
And stuff like that. But through the Rodney Dangerfield special, I think it was called on HBO, he introduced so many new comics like Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay, all these guys, man.
Didn't he have his own comedy club?
Yeah. And Dangerfield's I think it's still up there, actually.
In L.A. or something?
Yeah. And but he introduced so many comics. But he was one of the first ones that you saw do the edgy stuff on TV.
On TV, too?
Yeah, on TV. It was HBO. It was cable.
Okay.
But that was a big deal back then.
Did Dangerfield ever have a special? Like, did he ever have one?
I don't even know.
I
don't think so.
Because every clip I've ever seen of him has been on like a YouTube late night set. I
don't.
And I guess I don't know because of that if he's dirty or not. Because he's
filthy, man.
He's filthy.
Yeah, he's filthy. But he was he didn't get quote unquote discovered until he was like 58 years old.
Right.
But people in comedy knew him, and so by that time, I guess like when that special came out, it was probably late 70s, around early 80s or whatever like that. He blew up, man. And like I said, I don't remember any specials, but before you could even like now you see the path with comics. They'll come up and then maybe they'll be on a sitcom or this or that, and they'll put out a big special. He went straight to the movies.
Yeah.
He was a movie star. Caddyshack.
Yep. That's the big one I remember.
What was the one? Back to School, Caddyshack. Back to School, he was the star of.
Okay.
Caddyshack was probably the first time you saw him in a movie. He was edgy in Caddyshack.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was. He was hilarious in Caddyshack.
Yeah.
To this day, it's funny.
But he was probably the first time that I actually saw a comic on TV that actually did his stuff, that wasn't filtered out. And then after that,
did he catch flack for that at the time? Do you remember?
I don't remember. Who knows, man?
Like,
because we didn't have social media.
This is offensive and stuff. Yeah,
we didn't have social media.
There may not have been the outlet for all that outrage.
Yeah, and also too, you only had you didn't even have Fox network yet. You only had 3 networks.
True.
And then HBO came out, and HBO was like the forbidden fruit, man. Like, parents wouldn't let you watch HBO, and it was like porn. They would spread the rumors.
Dude, that was the same connotation back when I was in high school. I remember there were certain, if my parents watch this, they'll crack up because I don't think they still know about this, but one of our parents' houses had HBO, and we'd stay up late, and there'd be adult programming on, and we'd be like, oh my gosh, HBO, like guys on our basketball
They used to have
team.
like the rated R movies or whatever that would show skin and stuff like that.
This is like 9th grade or whatever.
Yeah.
So, that would have been early 2000s.
Literally where I grew up, I was in high school before you were, but it was around the time I was in high school, and cable was really only like 12 channels.
Yeah.
And HBO came out, and there were church groups and stuff trying to have the cable office where they couldn't air HBO.
Really?
Oh yeah, they were saying it was porn and all this stuff.
Do they still have Cinemax?
Not then. I don't think it was out yet.
Okay,
No.
I'm not sure, but I think the same connotation though, because I remember. For some reason, I remember they would call it Skinamax. Because it was like that was where the dirty stuff was.
And the Playboy channel, too, came out then. Yeah.
Because there was no internet porn. No anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was the taboo thing.
But Rodney Dangerfield, he was probably like my first introduction of live. I guess it was so-called. It wasn't aired live, I don't think, on HBO. But from that Rodney Dangerfield show, then I got to see other comics, coming up through the ranks. And then once cable blew up, then you had Comedy Central, the Comedy Channel. There was a handful of comedy channels in the 80s, like the mid and late 80s. And that was what fostered that comedy boom, man, where all these people came out of nowhere.
Right.
And they needed comics to fill it and stuff like that. And people like Sam Kinison, Bob Saget, I'm trying to think of other ones.
Tim Allen? I'm trying to think of 90.
Well, honestly, man, I remember when Tim Allen came out, but he wasn't really – he did some kind of edgy stuff here and there, but he was clean for the most part.
Yeah, I think he
was network clean. He was where –
I think he was trying to maybe play the game to get
network clean. He wanted
a network TV show, which he got.
And he did.
But I think if Tim Allen did what he wanted to do, I think he'd be pretty edgy. He got busted.
You know what, though, man? I heard him. He did an interview on someone's podcast within the last 6 months, and I was listening to it. I think it was Mark Maron, WTF.
Okay,
go look that one up.
I will.
He's religious now, man.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Tim Allen is. Oh yeah.
Well, that's good that if he's at that point,
because he just finished the other show. This was at the end of his most recent Last Man Standing.
Yep.
Yeah, and he was doing an interview for that. So, but he made his money off of it. He was good at what he did. He still is, but I mean, God. But then the 90s rolled around, and I was in California from 1982 to 1994, and then I went back from 98 to 2001.
Okay.
I was in San Diego, so I got to see a lot of comedy in San Diego.
Sure. See folks live out there?
Yeah, at the Comedy Store.
In the Comedy Store?
Yeah, in La Jolla.
What years did you spend there, you said?
In San Diego, I was in 1982 to 1994.
Oh, wow.
And then I was in Riverside, which is like an hour east of L.A. From 98 to 2001.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you weren't doing comedy at this point, but you were
No, I was coaching basketball when I was in Riverside. So I had 2 kids.
Okay.
So I didn't have time for any of that. But actually, when I was in the Marines, and when I got out of the Marines, I stayed in Southern California. And I'm trying to think of probably late 80s. I don't know, maybe like 88, around there. My girlfriend at the time was a manager at the Gap.
Okay.
And one of her friends, another female manager at the Gap, her husband was a comic.
Really?
Right? And he was, like, if you think about it in terms of what we know now, he was just starting to feature.
Okay.
Right? So in California, he was legit.
So he was good.
And we interacted socially at some different stuff and birthday parties and weddings and stuff like that. And he started giving me passes, man, to places where he was appearing, like to open up around San Diego or in the area. And I'd go to his shows and hang out. And then
so that was your first exposure to a comic that you knew.
That I knew, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then about 1990, I broke up with this girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I had time on my hands, whatever. But
yeah.
But while I was, up until that time, I was doing carpentry work with a guy.
Okay.
And I finally quit and went back to school. And so I was working in restaurants and stuff like that. But I went down to the Comedy Store on Potluck one night, and Potluck is what they call open mic. It's called Potluck Night.
Okay.
And it was in the Comedy Store in La Jolla in San Diego.
So is that a part of the franchise of the Comedy Store?
It's the same
branch off of.
That's where she sends her. That's where she sends her up and comers.
Okay.
To learn
get
how to
ready
do it.
for
the
big
and
one.
Let me backtrack for a second. I used to work out at the Mission Valley YMCA in San Diego, and I was working out. I had been to the Comedy Store before for Potluck, and I was working out in there. I recognized this guy. He was one of the bartenders. And so I walked out and said, "Hey, man, don't you bartend at the Comedy Store?" And so we started talking. He said, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Why don't you come on out for open mic?" I said, "I've been there before, man, but, I'm thinking about coming back out and watching or whatever." So I go out a couple times to watch open mic and meet him and some other people. Anyway, I meet this guy named Fred Burns, who was the manager at the Comedy Store. Mm-hmm. And then the other guy that I knew, his name was John Payton. He was a comic. Mm-hmm. He would do open mics there, working on stuff, and he was touring and things like that. And I ran into him there one night too. But I was talking to Eric, and I said, "How do you get to sign up for open mic?" He said, "Well, you call his phone number, and then you call back at 6:00 on Monday, and there'll be a list or whatever. And if you're on the list or whatever." So anyway, I did it like 2 or 3 times, and it was never on the list, right? And so finally I saw Eric, the guy at the gym again, and he said, "Man, I thought you were going to do open mic." I said, "I called that number like 3 weeks in a row, man, and I wasn't on there." He said, "Oh, no, that's not the right number." He said, "That's the number they give to the public." So he gave me some other number, and I called, and still no one knew me or whatever, and I didn't get on. So finally, I went back, and I saw him. He said, "Did you call?" I called, man. He said, "Here, let me introduce you." So he introduced me to the manager, Fred. And like that. Fred said, "Yeah, man, call back again next week," and so on and so. But then we were talking, and he's like, "Oh, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I work in the restaurants now. I used to work carpentry and stuff." He said, and long story short, they had some floor problems. They had like a leak from the roof, in the corner of the showroom.
So they hire you for that?
I was on the side. He said, do you know how to fix floors and stuff like that?" I said, well, I have to see it and stuff. And I looked at it, and I'm like, I could fix that because it was carpeted over the top and stuff like that. And I knew if I did shoddy work, you weren't going to be able to see it.
Right.
And I said, I could do it. So I spent like 2 Saturdays in a row working on that. And from then on, for like, I only did it for about 3 months. From then on, all I had to do was call, man.
And you got on stage did mic
3 minutes. I only got 3 minutes. But if you look at it.
What was that like?
But if you look at that in perspective, man, now, to see who was going up on that stage, man. And a lot of them wouldn't be names that you know. They never made it big time or whatever like that. But in the comedy circles in Southern California and Hollywood and stuff like that, people knew them.
Okay.
But they were really good. They just didn't have the look for TV or something, whatever it was, man. But I get to do 3 minutes. It was horrible, I was like, but I was writing, and then one of the guys would see some of the stuff I wrote. He said, "That's pretty good," and he's like, help him give me tips and stuff like that. And so I started helping him do some stuff. So I would write, and then so I just did it for like 3 months, and ended up going back to school full time. was coaching, helping coach at a high school that was brand new.
Yeah, you're coaching basketball, right?
No, I was coaching. Well, yeah, I was coaching. That's how I got in there, was coaching basketball. But I had to coach basketball, football, golf, whatever to make a little extra money.
So you kind of dropped stand up at that point and focused on other things.
And then at some point I realized I was working part time in a bar too, so I still hit it pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And at some point I just got I finished.
You're still drinking pretty hard, you mean?
Yeah, but I was a binge drinker, man. I could go for months and not drink, and then I decided this was going to be the weekend, and and it could last for days.
Yeah.
And so at some point after I finally graduated from San Diego State,
this is after you'd gone back to school, so you were already
I was working at that school while I was finishing up my degree.
Okay, how old were you at this point?
Oh like I was almost 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost 30.
So late 20s.
Yeah, because I didn't start back at school until after I was out of the Marines. So I had to wait a year to live in California to be a resident. So I was probably like 27 when I started back going part time, and then that's why I quit the carpentry job so I could go to school full time.
Okay.
And but anyway, I was working at that bar and going to San Diego State and doing this and that, and then finally I just well, actually, one thing that kind of put it in perspective was one of my roommates at the time. There was 4 of us, so we had a house in San Diego. And we roomed. He was former Army, and he was doing the same thing I was. He was out of service and he was going back to school. And he was. If you saw him, you'd probably be afraid to talk to him. He's like 6'5", had long hair, freaking goatee.
Scary looking.
He had a motor, rode a Harley Davidson and so that. He was learning to be an elementary school teacher. Right? He was bogus, man. He was just totally bogus. But we'd hang out all the time, and he worked the night shift, so he would get off on Friday mornings, and he'd have the whole weekend off. And I was still asleep in my room, and he'd woke me up, open the door, and wakes me up, and he's like, "Hey, man, I'm going to Lake Havasu for the weekend, such and such, whatever." And he never came back, man. He got killed on his motorcycle.
Holy sh!
Yeah, he got killed by another drunk guy on his motorcycle. Hit him head on.
Oh my gosh!
And I was sitting there. I'm like, damn, man. What is my plan here?
Right.
Or
you were drinking.
You can't just keep. Yeah.
You were living that same kind of lifestyle. That could easily have been.
But
you.
no. Yeah. But he wasn't though. He was he was disciplined. He had fun when he did, but he was doing what he was supposed to. He was working the graveyard shift, going to school in the daytime and stuff like that. But I was on the wrong track.
Sure.
And I was just like, I need to get out of here, man.
Yeah.
And so I just started applying to graduate schools. And
that was San Diego State?
No, it was Frostburg. I was at San Diego State as undergrad.
Okay.
And I applied to some schools, and this is when they used to have the old flyers on the bulletin board where you'd rip a postcard off. And there was one on there for this place called Frostburg State University in Maryland. I'd never heard of it.
Okay.
Right? But the picture looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was a PE major, and they had health and physical education. And my plan was, because I was helping coach basketball at a high school, my plan was to try to get a graduate assistantship with basketball and go to school and learn and get to coach and move up the ranks. That was my plan, was to be it was to be a high school coach, and then I was like, maybe I could coach college, man.
Yeah.
So, and I got an acceptance letter, and I went. And the first year I took a student loan out. But then I basically finished the academic work in the first year. But I walked on as a coach, and the coach's son was in my class, and we became roommates and stuff. And the coach hooked me up and took care of me, man. He made me assistant coach, and they gave me scholarship. So the second year, I was just taking classes in another program and coaching like full time in the program and stuff like that. And
so were you still drinking at this point?
Oh yeah.
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 So you're still managing that?
Yeah. Well, for the first year I was. And then the next year, I think it was the second year that I was there, I found out I was going to be a father. So I stopped drinking when I found out I was going to be a father. I haven't drank since.
Yeah.
But then I had to freaking have a plan. And
because you had the baby to depend on and everything.
So I had a master's degree, and my plan was to see if I could keep going to school, because I had read this article, and it was projecting jobs in my field for like the next 10, 15 years. And it said by the year, I'm trying to remember what it was, by the year 2000, 2005 or something, there was going to be this massive shortage of PhDs, right? And so I'm like, well, if I could get an assistantship. So I applied for assistantships and I actually had 2 offers.
Okay.
And I took one at the
You need to
University
get a
of Southern
PhD in physical education?
and human performance.
Human performance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I took the one at a University of Southern Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And I was down there. I finished the program in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
The department chair was really good, man. She took care of me.
So you're a doctor.
Yeah.
I could call you Dr.
I got a bit about that.
Dr. Taylor?
Yeah, I got a bit
Dr. Robert Taylor.
Yeah, I don't tell people that too much. But I took that. I took the position, and my department chair really took care of me, man. She was she let me go full time in the summer, so it only took me 2 years. I got a stipend. I think I got $500 a month. This guy who was in the program with me, a guy named Jeff Beck, was a former D1 college tennis player. He started his own landscape company down there just to make money. So he had me mowing lawns and painting a house. We painted one of the dean's houses and just making money or whatever. And
so did you bring your child down with you?
Well, I was married then.
You were married?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
so
moved down
the
there.
family down there?
We were living in a place about as big as this room.
Yeah?
Yeah. And so I was there for 2 years. And towards the end of that time, I started thinking, well, all right, can't go to school forever. I gotta get a job. And I started just applying for jobs, man, for basketball jobs. But the 2 summers before my son was born, when I was at Frostburg State, I worked basketball camps all summer. I worked Syracuse, UMass, Pitt. I worked 6 weeks during the summer at 76ers camp in the Poconos.
Oh, wow.
One of the guys I coached with at Frostburg State is still the director at 76ers camp.
Okay.
And some other, I can't even remember off the top of my head.
What position did you play when you were a player?
When I was in the Marine, I was shooting guard.
Shooting guard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know what, man? And especially in football, the guys will tell you about football in the service, especially the Marine Corps. Man, there was some of those teams could have beat freaking college teams. I mean, you'd have all these former semi-pro players and college players and stuff like that. But so I had that experience with the basketball stuff. And you know how those guys always, hey, if you ever need anything, give me a call.
Yeah.
Well, when I was at UMass, that was when Coach Cal was there when they went to the Final Four.
Okay.
And I worked Kentucky when Rick Pitino was there. And I still got a rejection letter from him when I applied for assistantship. But when I was finishing up at Southern Miss, I was applying for basketball coaching jobs, and for like where you went to school, Division II and Division III, you pretty much have to teach.
Yeah.
A lot of times. So I had an advantage. I had a PhD. I could teach any.
Sure.
And
so you're more marketable than the average.
But honestly, man, to be honest with you, I had experience at all levels, and I loved the Division III level.
Really?
You
man. Preferred it? Why?
It was like glorified high school.
Yeah.
Because there was no scholarships and all that stuff.
So everybody's there who wanted to be there.
But you didn't have to deal with parents, and you didn't. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everybody wanted to be there. And I just liked it, but I ended up applying to a lot of jobs in San Diego, community college jobs. Community college jobs at the time were the best jobs you could get, because if you were to coach for 3 years in a full-time position, you were tenured.
Okay.
So even if they fired you as a coach, you had a teaching job for life almost, man.
Wow.
And it paid more than the major universities.
Okay.
And all you taught was undergrad classes. You teach tennis and golf and stuff like that. And so I applied for 4 jobs in San Diego. Well, what happened was I applied for 1 job in San Diego in the community college district, but they had like 4 vacancies, men's and women's. So they interviewed me for all 4 vacancies.
Okay.
So I went out there for like a week and interviewed, and but it's like a lot of red tape, man. So you go through that process, and then they got to take a couple weeks to meet and all this stuff. It's a public community college. But while I was there, I called back to Mississippi. We had an answering machine and checked my messages. And there was a guy on there. He said, this is Jerry King, athletic director at California Baptist University, which was only an hour and a half north of San Diego. I was in San Diego at the time. But this was like on a Sunday. And we were flying out the next day. And he says, we like to interview for our women's basketball job here and stuff like that.
Head coach?
Yeah.
Heck
I'd never
yeah.
coached women's basketball, women's anything in my life.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but I needed a job.
Yeah.
And I called him on the phone. I said, look, man, I said, I got to get on a plane in the morning and go all the way back to Mississippi. He said, look, I'll book you and we'll fly you back out here on Tuesday. So I went all the way back home on a Monday, drove to New Orleans again the next morning, flew all the way back to California and went through the process and stuff like that. And long story short, it was about a week or so, you know, and I was still trying to check on those jobs in San Diego, man. 'Cause I want to go back to San Diego.
Uh-huh.
And they offered me the job at Cal Baptist.
So you were the basketball coach there?
Yeah, the women's basketball.
Cal Baptist. So that was D3 women's?
It was NAIA Division 1.
NAIA Division 1?
Division 1.
Okay.
They're NCAA Division 1 now.
NAIA.
I'm trying to think of...
Isn't Cornerstone NAIA?
There's some big schools like...
in Michigan?
What's Grand Rapids University?
Grand Rapids Community College, GRCC.
There's a
Grand Valley State
there's
University.
a big Grand Valley.
Grand Valley. We played against them.
Yeah.
They're D2.
But they used to be NAIA, I think.
Okay, they may have been.
They're big time D2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're big time D2.
Yeah, we played them. We beat them a couple of times when they were ranked number 1 in the country.
Yeah, they won a lot of big games.
Mm-hmm. They're very good.
But yeah, you know.
So how did that go? How was it being a head coach of a women's basketball team?
Well, you know, I thought, you know, when I was, I won't say even contemplating taking the job, I had a kid that was not even 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was 2 years old. He was a little over 2 years old, you know. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's not much. And plus, it was California. It sounds better, you know. It's like, well, it's in California. It's only an hour and a half from San Diego. That's a long hour and a half, man. Mm-hmm. I used to say it was like the Arkansas of California.
Yeah.
You know, but I took the job, man. I got there, and it was in pretty bad shape.
The program was?
Yeah. I mean, they had success, but they had kind of fallen off, and it wasn't what you might think it was. You know, a college head coaching job or whatever. I didn't have this big staff, or I was painting freaking closets and locker rooms and stuff before and all that. But I learned a lot. I was there for 3 years, man. And I learned a lot, especially about coaching women. Mm-hmm. Now I coach triathlon and stuff, but most of the people I coach are women.
What's different?
It's just the way that you have to relate to them. Well, there's a lot of things different. The most fundamental thing that's different is the game. You have to teach them how to play basketball. Mm-hmm. Other than if you get the 1 out of 100,000 women that can dunk, the game is below the rim. Yeah. Right? And even today, I can barely even watch men's basketball anymore.
Really?
Because they don't play basketball. And most of them can't even shoot. Right. But you watch the women's game, and they're actually fundamentally sound, and it grew on me. I mean,
that's an interesting perspective.
But you know,
because it's all below the rim, so they actually have to have.
They have to be able to shoot. They
ball
have
handling,
exactly,
shooting.
man. It's a slower game too. I'll be honest with you, man, because I used to sit there and watch the men's games after hours, and I couldn't even keep up with the game because they're so big, and they make the court smaller, and they move up the court faster, and you can't keep up with the game. Yeah. The women's game is slower, right? And so you can control for a lot more things, but yeah, I learned a lot, man. Like,
that is really interesting perspective. That's actually the first thing I notice if I'm at an NBA game is, holy crap, the court
because
looks
they're so
tiny.
big. It's because they're so big,
and there's barely any movement. Like they get it in the paint, and it's like.
But look how horrible the shooting is in the NBA.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You know, I learned a lot, man. You know, I wouldn't trade it though because it was like I was learning on the job, man. Mm-hmm. You know, I was making mistakes and. But I traveled a lot.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coaching is...
dude, I can tell you this. You know, I used to think, God, why do those guys look so old? Mm-hmm. You know, and men's basketball, high school coaches, college coaches and stuff like that. You know, they'd be white hair and you're like, oh, I'm 35. And I'm, what, man? Yeah. You know, I know now why. Yeah. Because if you're doing it for your living, man, the stress level's so high. Yeah. Because even at a Baptist university, they want to win. Yeah. You know, and
absolutely.
And you sit there and you invest your time and energy and stuff like that, and then for it not to come to fruition on the court, you'll see things happen. You're like, you know, we've practiced that, we've done, you know, and
Yeah. That was the 1 year of coaching in Charlotte and Marvin Ridge. I was consumed by it. I loved it.
Well, you become more invested in the athletes, and that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. I was invested. Like I cared about the kids. I tried to keep it. I mean, I was only 25 maybe, 26. But I tried not to get too emotionally attached to the kids, or I tried to keep it separate. But, I was putting tons of effort in. Tons. Like, all my free time on the weekends was breaking down film.
See, that's
and then
exactly.
hours and hours and hours during the week. And it was rewarding. I remember, and this is like end of the season sort of, I'm a big Green Bay Packers fan.
Okay.
Packers were playing the Panthers, and they were right in town. And this girl I was friends with, she and I decided to kind of look for what hotel they were staying in.
Yeah.
So we found the hotel they were staying in.
Packers.
Yeah, we stalked them. Yeah, and we found it. And it's hard to do that, by the way. They keep it real secretive.
Was Brett Favre still playing for him
now? No, it was Rodgers. We saw Rodgers come down. We didn't talk to Aaron because he kind of stayed
He lived
away.
in Hattiesburg when I was at Southern Miss.
Oh, he did?
He was a sport management major.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I love Brett Favre. I'm a huge Favre fan. But yeah, real quick, I talked to Ron Zook, who was the Packers special teams coordinator at the time.
Right.
And I can't believe I went up to him now.
At the hotel?
Like, yeah. Yeah, because a guy I went to high school with played at University of Illinois, Ryan McDonald, and he played under Ron Zook at the time.
Oh, okay.
Zook was the head coach. And I said, yeah, man, I've been doing some high school coaching, and I love it. Like, it's really cool. And he said, be careful. He said, it'll consume you.
Yeah.
It will. And it's something that I kind of feel like comedy's maybe similar in that, like, you couldn't do both. You couldn't coach and do comedy.
I was going to say
they
something.
both demand so much of.
I was going to say something a minute ago about that. Like I said, I didn't have a big staff. I had a part-time assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married, got a kid, and then I had 2 kids. So I'm married with 2 kids coaching basketball. I'm up breaking down tape. I'm going to scout games.
Yeah.
I'm recruiting. I used to take my 4-year-old son with me to recruit.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you had to do. The on-court stuff is the easy stuff.
Yeah.
That's the easy stuff.
Yep.
And then you talk about the relationships and becoming attached and stuff like that. Well, the way it differed between high school was I was responsible for them because they were there with me.
Yeah.
And they're girls too. That's a whole different animal, man.
Mm-hmm.
You think with guys you can give them a little more leeway. They're a little safer or whatever like that.
Mm-hmm.
But
with girls, you got to be a little more protective, almost, or like.
Yeah, and not because you got someone's daughter you're taking care of. And don't think their parents didn't remind me of that too, or their dads wouldn't remind me of that. But I don't blame them for that. But in terms of like what you're saying, you couldn't do 2 things at once. That's why I had to stop coaching because I was teaching full time and I was a college basketball head coach.
I can understand.
And they were killing me. The men's head coach didn't even teach. He was just getting paid a salary.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm doing 2 things. I'm doing twice as much as him.
And teaching is not easy either when you have grading and things.
I was even teaching at night classes too, day and night classes.
Yeah.
But so what finally came down to was either got to coach or teach. Well, it was going to be hard for me to leave start looking for another coaching job with 2 kids, and so I started looking for teaching jobs,
mm-hmm.
and that's how I ended up in Pennsylvania. And so that's when I stopped coaching. But you're talking about you can't do 2 and how it consumes you, and stand up does too.
Mm-hmm.
I did notice one of the things that lured me into coaching and that got me in there was the problem solving, watching the videotapes, and just the game planning. I would watch something and I'm like, there's a weakness.
We can fix it.
And man, we beat some teams that we lost to some teams too, but we beat some teams we never should have beat.
Yeah.
And
isn't that powerful when your solution
you can't sleep for 2 days.
solves the problem?
You go home and you can't sleep.
Yeah. Right?
And so that's how I got my adrenaline fix.
Yeah.
But it's when you lose, it's just as bad, man.
Yeah.
It's just as bad.
Yeah.
And like
that was the same kind of kick I got.
But
Continue.
it's like if you go on stage.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you go on stage. If you kill on stage, that carries you for a couple days, day or 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you bomb on stage, it carries you farther. Because if you bomb on stage, all you're thinking about, how do I fix that?
Yeah.
If you're going to stay in it.
Right.
Right. You're like, and it consumes you, and you're just like the next day. You're like, you don't sleep. You just want to
That's
start.
true. That's how I feel.
You want to correct it, and
do you think that's an unhealthy thing?
No, because that's what kind of lured me into it was the problem solving. Was how can I write something? How does it? It's just like basketball. It has fundamentals. I can structure it like this. I can do this. It doesn't guarantee I'm going to win, but it gives me the best probability to win.
Sure.
Right. And then if it doesn't work, then you got to go back and look at the tape and say, why didn't it work?
Yeah.
I did this. I did this. I did this.
Yeah.
The audience was this. What can I fix? How can I fix it?
Yeah.
And then that's your problem solving. And then you go back and you try it again.
And then you execute. And game day is like on stage.
And open mics are scrimmages where you're just running through stuff to see if it works. But you still don't know until you get to the game.
Right. That's exactly right.
That's
I've thought about that
in.
analogy before, but I'm glad you made it again because it's so true. Because there's only so much you can do ahead of time to prepare for the moment. Because once the ball's snapped, I mean, in football, basketball is the same. Like all hell breaks loose, and you just hope your preparation was enough.
And how many times have you heard like successful comics say you have to be willing to fail? You have to be willing to fail. Most people don't want to fail, and they don't like to fail.
So they don't.
Us included, but we're willing to fail.
Right.
And the people who aren't willing to fail are the ones who don't last long in sport or in anything.
And
right.
Work to life.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times, I'm probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but how many times do you see the same comics come to an open mic and they're doing their best stuff at open mic, and then they might throw one new joke or two because they don't want to fail at open mic. They want to win open mic. They want the crowd to like them for open mic.
Yeah.
And
I'm guilty of that some too, but I like to cycle it.
Right. But where are you gonna scrimmage if you're not doing it at open mic? At a paid show?
Right.
That's like being in a game and trying a new play in a game.
Yeah.
And it gets intercepted for a pick six touchdown.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a lot of correlations, man. With that.
Your point about the adrenaline fix and the problem solving, I totally relate to that.
It's the preparation too.
What's that?
It's the preparation, just like
it's
sports,
the preparation,
man.
100%.
Preparation.
The biggest difference I noticed when I went from high school to college was the amount of film study in the classroom and how small details added up to success or failure of a play.
Right.
And this was like totally new to me because in high school, the coaching we received, I mean, I love my high school coaches, but it wasn't nearly as in depth as what we got at the college level.
Yeah.
So when I got to coaching at that high school, I remember it was impossible for me. It was like it had been like probably 7 years since I'd played. But as soon as I saw my defensive lineman take a rep, I was like, I know that's wrong.
Right.
Like I know exactly how to fix this.
Yeah.
And like that was practice reps. And then in the film study, you'd be able to correct it on tape. And then on game day, the most exciting thing for me was I was up in the box.
Yeah.
And I'd have a freshman. I'd gang up a freshman.
That's where they stuck me because I didn't know what I was doing. They just stuck me up into the heads of it.
Yeah, well, we were up there trying to like play it like a chessboard,
Yeah.
And I had a little freshman next to me, and he'd have the iPad.
Yeah.
And he would record the play. I would watch it in real time, but you can only see so much.
Right.
So I would say, hey, give me the iPad, like right after, and I'd zoom back, and I'd be like, okay, Cole, you're out of your gap. And I'd radio down and be like, tell Cole to get his head in the effing game.
Yeah.
Or like, somebody's pad level's too high or they're doing this or that.
Well, it's like that old saying, I can show you better than I can tell you.
Yeah.
My son was a pole vaulter.
Oh, yeah?
And I would take it's probably what you were using. It's called a coach's eye.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And I would, every time he'd do a run down the runway, I'd video, and then he'd come over and we'd do it frame by frame. And he'd pick it apart and he could see what he did, and then he'd correct it.
Yep.
You can't do it in meets. But we would do that because I didn't know enough. I had to be at his practice. Most high school coaches here, they have a couple good ones, but most high schools don't have pole vault coaches.
Right.
It's too technical, and most high school coaches, track coaches, don't teach pole vault.
Right.
And there's a guy in Lexington. Half the state champions you see in South Carolina in every classification, he coached in his backyard, and we live 15 minutes away. And I had to take my son over there because he wasn't old enough to drive. So I'd sit there through 2-hour practices.
Right.
And I could pick up on some stuff, but I wasn't a pole vaulter. So that's why I went and got that coach's eye. I started recording it, and then my son could pick it out.
And he could coach himself.
He could watch himself and pick it out.
Yeah.
And he got so good at that by his junior and senior years, especially his senior year, during meets against competition. He would help the competition out. right? And in the region meets and stuff like that, they all knew each other.
Good for him.
They all knew each other because they coached. In the
so
middle,
they weren't like, we're not going to help each other.
No. They traded polls. They shared polls.
It's a good note for comics too. You should help each other.
You're
tags and encourage each other.
Yeah.
There's no short.
But they were actually competing against each other.
Right.
But he didn't care because he'd rather win against somebody good at 100% than just whatever. But using the video, and you see a lot of people use it at open mics and stuff like that. You know what? I'd be curious to see how many of them actually watch it, because I can't stand watching it. I can't stand watching it. I'm sitting there like, oh man, I can't believe I said that, or
Yeah, I don't like it
you
either.
have to be
I
objective.
force myself. I like get in the car and I'll be like.
But it's like writing too, though. I don't know if I told you that or not. It was about 2 weeks ago. I was at an open mic and I ran into someone, and I said, "Oh, what's going on, man? What you been up to?" He said, "Oh man, I wrote 30 minutes of comedy today." I said, "You wrote 30 minutes of comedy today?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You wrote 30 minutes of comedy, or you wrote comedy for 30 minutes?" He said, "Yeah, man, I wrote for 30 minutes today."
Oh.
I said, "Oh, yeah, all right."
So he got maybe 30 seconds.
Right. But it's really hard, man, until you have to be objective to be able to. Ideally, it doesn't always work like this, but ideally, perfect scenario is you'd want to write jokes and in your mind, objectively, get them as funny as you can get them before you ever take them on stage, because it shortens the learning curve. You're not wasting stage time. But if you're sitting there thinking every time you write something, oh, that's hilarious, and then you go and
you can't expect to be perfect without trying.
Yeah, because everybody's guilty of it. And like, I'll write something, and I'm like, all right, that's funny, but then like 2 hours later, I'll be like, that's not that funny.
Yeah.
And usually my rule is probably 90% of the time, the first thing I come up with isn't that funny, or the audience can guess it before I even say it.
It's too obvious. Yeah, I think I like about comedy compared to sports is there's like a creative side of it too. Like there's some kind of mistake, like where the ideas come from.
Well, more so than sports.
More so than sports.
Yeah.
Like you can apply sports discipline.
The coach tells you what to do in sports. Here you have autonomy.
It's just like your brain and stuff, and like crazy shit you can try.
You have autonomy when you go on stage.
That was scary to me. That was the first thing that really scared me about any sort of stuff like this, because I was so used to like, I was very type A. I always got good grades. I always like. You gave me an assignment, I would knock it out of the park. But I didn't really know who I was or my own voice or like what I wanted to do or say or whatever. So the first time I tried to put myself out there in a creative sense, I was terrified. I was like...
Well, for one thing though, man, especially going back to your school stuff and sports too, but school especially, most of that stuff is objective. Math and science and stuff like that, there's a right and a wrong answer.
Right. And there's
comedy is subjective.
Yeah.
It is subjective to you. It's subjective to the audience. And what was funny last night in Columbia might not be funny tomorrow night in Spartanburg with a different audience, and it kills you. Like when you write and you go do it, you're like, all right, that's good. Got that one, check that one off, and you do it tomorrow night on cruise control, and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And
it might not even be the joke. It's probably something else. It's probably like how you're coming across to that audience.
Yeah, well, that's the problem solving. You got to figure out what went wrong.
How do you execute?
Yeah. That's what those long car rides are for.
Yeah. Speaking of, thanks for driving up here.
Oh yeah,
Columbia. Appreciate it. Yeah, dude. I like the sports parallels with comedy. So I want to get back to like you took a very long break between those 3 months you were doing
30
open
years.
mics. 30 years between that.
Until my kids went to college.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, how did you get back on stage? And was it last year when you?
No. Okay. When I was
getting back on stage with comedy.
Even like when my kids were growing up, ideally my whole thing was I would go back to coaching. I would get back into coaching sometime.
Was that your first love, or did you just think that?
All I wanted to be was a high school basketball coach. But then I was already at college, and I was like, man, this would be. And I was moving up through the ranks, man. There's an old saying in coaching: once you're in, unless you sleep with somebody's kid or you kill somebody.
Yeah, if you're working hard.
Yeah, you're in, man, because it's networking. And I was moving up, and but my kids were going up, and then I got divorced, and I had physical custody of my kids.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to raise my kids. And luckily I had a job teaching online.
Okay.
So I could be wherever I needed to be, but I couldn't be out at nighttime, you know, or doing that. And the only way you can do comedy is you got to be able to go out at night.
Yeah.
And but still, all through those years, man, I had a little binder. I would write jokes down. I'd be somewhere and write an idea down for something. And I'd come home and I'd throw it in that binder.
So you still had all this in the back of your mind.
I would still just throw ideas in there, and every now and then I'd write a joke and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote some stuff. And November 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Every year on the Marine Corps birthday on November 11th, they have in Las Vegas they celebrate the Marine Corps birthday.
Okay.
And
November 11th, that's Veterans Day, right?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. November 11th November 10th is Marine Corps birthday, but it's
Is
right.
The, is
it's
the 11th
right,
Veterans Day?
and so usually it's like a joint Veterans Day Marine Corps birthday thing.
Oh, I got you.
Right, and but it had been over 30 years since I was out of the Marine Corps, so we all connected on Facebook and said, let's get together in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So 2019, we all got together in Las Vegas for about 4 days, and while I was there, one of the guys I knew, the last time I had heard, he owned the comedy club at the Hard Rock Cafe, not Hard Rock, the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas. So me and this other guy, I went down there, and I asked if he was there, and they're like, he doesn't own it anymore, but I think he's here.
Mm.
The ownership thing is another.
Yeah.
That's another story. I didn't ask about that. I read that in the newspaper.
Uh-huh.
But he comes out and we're talking, and he's like, "Oh man, what's going on?" And then he's like, "What have you been doing the whole time?" And I was explaining to him, and he says, "You still write?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I got a thing." He said, "What?" He says, "When you get back home, man, send me some of your stuff. I want to check it out or whatever." And then he's like, "You want to do a guest spot here?" And I haven't even been on stage. I'm like, "Nah, man. Nah. I mean, this was legit club.
Probably wise.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Nah,
Self-aware.
man." It would have been a shit show because
Yeah.
I wasn't even trying to do comedy.
Right.
And I said, "Nah, man." I said, "Maybe I'll take a rain check on you one day or something."
Yeah.
So I got back home. I went to San Diego from there, and then went home, and forgot about it. And he emailed me or messaged me on Facebook actually. He's like, "Hey man, I thought you were gonna send me some of that stuff." So I started looking through it there, and I typed a couple of them, like a half dozen things.
So he followed up on you.
Yeah, he's like, "Hey man," he says, "This stuff's pretty good." He said, "Why don't you start doing open mic?" I said, "Man, I don't even think they have open mics here."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, check it out, man." He says, "There's got to be something somewhere." And so I looked, and I found a comedy closet. I don't know if you ever went there before.
I started comedy last year.
It wasn't open very long.
Yeah.
And I said, I told him, I said, "Hey, I found this place, man, West Columbia, and I'm gonna go down there Monday night and check it out." He said, "You should go up with this stuff." I said, "No, I'm not gonna go up, man." I said, "I'll just go check it out." And I just went and watched, and about 15 people went up or whatever like that. And no knock against anyone who went up, but I was sitting there and I'm like, that stuff I wrote is just as funny as most of the people who went up here tonight.
Yeah.
I just don't have the repetition or whatever like that.
Yeah.
So Patrick was running. I said, "How do I get on for next week?"
Patrick Fowler?
Yeah, he said, "Oh, he messaged me on Facebook."
Mm-hmm.
So I did, and I went up and I started going there. And then he's like, "We do one at Art Bar." Mm-hmm. And I went to Art Bar. And then from there, man, I started meeting people. And
when was this? Was this last year or 2 years ago?
It was 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I started to network, and people say, "Oh man, there's another open mic in Augusta. There's an open mic in Rock Hill." And then God, I'd only been at. I started going to the library, and I would write like 2 or 3 days, and I wrote some stuff. Actually, a couple of the jokes I still use. I punched them up or whatever, but I went from it was December 2nd. 2019 when I went to the Comedy Store on stage, right? Before December was over, within 2 weeks after that, I auditioned at the Comedy House they had 3 open mic spots for this big show they were doing. There was like 30-something people. I got one of the spots. I opened the show.
At the Comedy House?
At the Comedy House.
In Columbia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was thinking I was the only white guy there.
Yeah.
And,
I went to the Comedy House for the first time last Friday after Donovan's little roast.
Yeah.
Because T-Link was opening for Hulk the Comedian.
Yeah.
Sauce and Michael and I were there. Michael couldn't stick around. But yeah, that's I think I was the only white guy in the building too. But dude, love that club, man.
Yeah.
It was
But at the show, it was kind of like a variety show.
okay.
T-Link and those guys used to be in this group. It might still be going, but I don't think they really do anything like that right now. Damn, sorry, T-Link, I forgot the name of the group.
Certified Comics?
No,
that's
their
going.
their stand-up group. This was like an improv group.
Oh, okay.
Wild Out Columbia. Shout out to Wild Out Columbia.
Wild Out Columbia.
They were in an improv group and they had a show, but they let 3 stand-ups open up, and I opened up.
Okay. How'd it go?
It was good. I mean, I did 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't even been doing the stuff on stage for like 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, and but I was in the green room and it was really busy in there, man. People coming in and out, and you ever met Skip Lawson?
I know the name.
Well, he's at Comedy House.
Okay.
And I don't know if he's still
I've only
working
been to
out there or
Comedy House
not.
literally once. I need to go more.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still working out there or not, but he was kind of running things and stuff. And I'm sitting there, and he says, "You know why I picked you, don't you?" I said, "No." He said because you write well and other stuff like that. He was complimenting me and stuff like that. And he said, "You stood out from the other guys who were just riffing and all that stuff like that, you know." And but hey, man, since then I would meet people, and I was on the road, man. There was like a couple of us. We'd go down to Augusta. We'd go here, there, and I mean, it got to the point where, I was like 13 nights in a row, man, or multiple places and stuff like that.
Right.
But then COVID hit.
Yep.
Like I even had it set up. COVID hit in
March, I think.
In March, in the 1st of March, John, the guy who was one of the owners at the Comedy Closet, had organized. He put me in a showcase. Me, T-Link. There was like 6 or 7 of us. We were doing a showcase, and it got canceled because of COVID. And I also had a venue in Lexington that was going to let us do a showcase every 2 weeks, every other Wednesday. It was a nice place too, but it actually has since shut down.
Oh wow!
Because of COVID, but everything died, man. But that's how I got back into it, was just on a freak thing out in Las Vegas.
From the guy who called you.
Yeah. I mean, but I always felt comfortable because I always knew I could write, because I wrote for some other people, and they used my stuff. But that's part of it.
So were you hungry for something like an outlet where you could put to use some of your sports background, discipline, and also these ideas you had written down?
Well, I was thinking I was getting bored because I was at home. My kids were in college.
Yeah, you had time.
I didn't have to go to high school sports and stuff anymore. I was teaching online. I mean, I was working out, but you can only train for so many hours a day.
Right.
And I love comedy, and I was just it just planted a seed in my head when I was out there. I was like, man, because I did, like when I first tried it, I still remember the first joke I wrote.
What was it?
That was good, and a guy used it. Well, it was. I can give you the gist of it, but it's kind of a local.
You don't have to tell it if you don't want to, but I just like to hear.
No, I'll tell you, but it's kind of dated because this was back in the early 90s, or like around 1990, when the show American Gladiators was originally on. You remember that?
Yeah. I know
it was kind of like this ninja thing show.
Yeah.
But they went against each other in competitions, and then they got somewhere. Well, if you drive south to San Diego on the Interstate 5, when you're coming back or going down, there's these yellow signs where families are trying to cross illegally, come across the border, and they have the sign is like a silhouette of a female with 2 kids.
Okay.
Going across, and it's like caution.
Border.
People running across the freeway or whatever that. And the premise of the joke was that, I'm working with ABC on an idea for a new television show, and it involves 3 rounds. The first round was such and such, and anyway, the final round was, trying to navigate Interstate 5 north with 2 dependents across and it said the current working title was called Illegal American Gladiators. Someone used that. It was he shortened it up. It worked for them because everyone knew what it was back there.
Right, yeah.
That
Illegal
was like,
American Gladiator. So that would be a similar game that they might have had on the show.
Right.
Dodging traffic.
Yeah.
That's great. I get it.
I mean, you'd have to been. It would only work in San Diego or maybe L.A. Because you had to know about the freeway.
Sure.
With the border crossing and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the other part about.
Well, I was proud of that. I was also proud of that because somebody used it and stuff like that. I was like,
yeah.
But that's the only one I can remember.
Yeah.
From back there, but that's all you need is one, man. Like you only need someone was at the Laughing Skull when I was over there a couple weeks ago, and he was going up for his first time, and he went up, and I was standing there next to this one girl, and she's like, he hasn't even worked very much on this and stuff like that. I said, all it takes is one laugh.
Yeah. And he'll be
addicted. I said he can eat crap for 3 hours and 58 seconds. I mean 3 minutes and 58 seconds. But if he gets 1 second of laughs,
yeah,
he'll hook him for a little while.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. I bombed my first set. I was not prepared. I got a text of somebody inviting me to go, and
but see, for someone like you, that works on you because you're driven and you've always been driven. And so what it did to you was it damaged your ego, and you had to say, oh, I got to go back and redeem myself on that. There's no way that's happening.
Well, also I felt a call to action, and if I had said no to it, I would have taken it as like a sense of cowardice, sort of. I would have been like, dude, I'm a pussy. I should go. So I got on stage, and I got a couple of laughs, but the jokes that I thought would be something weren't anything.
Yeah, right. That's how it is sometimes.
There were a couple of ones that worked okay. But the first laugh I got, I remember hearing it and being like, oh my gosh. Like, it was really weird.
Yeah.
Like the whole room, like the sound in unison, I was like, oh. And then they laughed pretty early, so I was like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
And then it was like nothing. So it was weird. Back? It was like, oh, this is horrifying and scary. Like, and I don't understand it. And
then you do the same act the next night or the next week, and they don't laugh,
right.
and you're like, what?
Right.
What?
But I was back the next week at radio. Like, I haven't missed any time since. In fact, it's gotten busier. But yeah, you're right. That first laugh,
it spits people out, man, because it's especially people that are driven and they're used to being a certain criteria that's objective and says, if you do this, you're going to succeed, period. Right? But it's not true in comedy.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. You can do that, and it might work tonight, but it might not work tomorrow night. It might not work ever. So
you're saying driven people spits them out? They might quit because they're like, this doesn't
I'm saying that's one thing that you have to understand if you're going in and you are driven, is that I have to be willing to fail.
Yeah.
A lot of driven people aren't willing to fail.
Yeah.
Because they always win.
I'm willing to fail, but it's painful.
Well, of course. Yeah, but it's in sports too.
Mm-hmm.
If you lose, then nothing will motivate you better than a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just look at it I was talking to someone not too long ago, and I said the same thing. I said, yeah, nothing will motivate you better than a loss. I said, but when I'm on stage, if something doesn't work or a bump, I don't look at it as a loss because it's always an opportunity to figure something out when you're up there.
Right.
You just got to figure it out.
Right.
Like if I go up there and nothing worked, then I'm like, God, why didn't that work? Well, because the average age of everyone in here was probably 19, and I'm doing jokes with references for people that are in their 40s,
right.
or so it was my fault, or they didn't come to see comedy. I did this show like about 3 weeks ago. I'm on stage, and they got a big screen TV behind me playing the football game while I'm on stage.
Yeah,
right.
That's not gonna work.
No, I know. It's like, but I knew it before I walked up there. I'm like, so I just basically went through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's not good either. But but you should always until you learn otherwise. I think you should even if you're just sitting there and you're watching other people bomb, you're like, my stuff's not going to work here. It's not going to work here. Then you still go up and try it, because then you might I've had that happen before at Art Bar, where I go up and I'm like, here we go. And then they'll laugh at one joke. I'm like, wait a minute. All right. I'm like, oh, all right. They laugh at that, but, talking about getting one laugh or whatever. I was doing open mic at the Joint I told it, I can't remember what it was. Something about my mother in the nursing home, but I made a segue to the next joke. It was just something I said off the top of my head, and man, they cracked up.
Right.
But I couldn't remember, to this day. I can't remember what I said. I was like,
Did you record it?
No, I didn't record it. And I can't remember what I said. I'm like, what did I say?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I record it. If I do something accidentally.
Usually I do, but like that thing at that roast for Donovan the other night. I had my camera ready, and I'm not paying attention, and some people didn't show up. So me thinking I was going sixth or whatever it was on the list, well, only 4 people had gone up, and he skips all the way to me, and I didn't have time to turn my
Dude, I feel bad. I was sitting there. I should have just turned on the camera. And
I was like, man, now? He's like, yeah. I'm like, I like to, I just like to record it to go back just to see. For the roast, though, those are like one-offs.
Yeah, roast jokes can't really live in your set always.
But I have written roast jokes that I've turned into regular jokes,
like the
heckler stoppers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can stop hecklers with some of those, or like a couple of them you can reuse. For different roasts and stuff like that. But yeah, I try to record the stuff. I get lazy sometimes though.
Yeah. So how hard was it to quit drinking?
Well, I quit overnight.
I'm interested in this because I also stopped drinking, and I had a binge.
It wasn't hard for me because, like I said, I was a binge drinker when I drank, and God, I hated hangovers.
How old were you when you stopped? 30?
No, man, 33.
33?
Yeah.
I'm 33.
My son was 34.
Okay.
When he was born. I'm trying to remember. It wasn't hard for me because I just knew I wouldn't be able to do the job, man. I would miss work. I would miss anything. I missed the GRE twice for graduate school. I was drunk. I was probably still awake drinking on a Saturday morning when they gave it. It's like there was no way I was going to be able to be a dad or whatever like that. So I just stopped. But I wasn't. It probably wasn't hard for me as it would be like for a full blown alcoholic that needs a drink. Like that, I didn't need it. I didn't honestly. I didn't like the taste of most of it.
Yeah.
I was just. I drank with a plan, man. I was like a power drinker. It was like I started and I didn't stop until either they ran out of alcohol, I ran out of money, I blacked out, or I was something else. I was in jail or something. I don't know, because it got to the point where people wouldn't even hang out with me when we start drinking. Yeah, they try to sneak off like later at night because they knew it wasn't going to end.
Drinking snuck up on me because I started drinking when I got to college, but prior to that I was very sheltered, didn't have a drop before that. So at the same time, because I was always very goody along with the type A stuff. I first exposure to autonomy and playing with my college football buddies, these became my best friends in the world to this day. So I associated the good times after victories with binge drinking. You get the keg, you get the and it
you had to be 21 in Michigan, right?
You did, but underage you could drink as a freshman. It was a small town.
I mean, legally.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We would do it illegally. I mean,
you only had to be 18 years old when I was growing up.
Oh, really?
You could buy beer in high school if you were 18.
Yeah,
I wasn't, but
it didn't stop us. Hillsdale was such a small podunk town, and I don't even think the cops cared very much. But yeah, so it was always a positive, very fun thing in college, and then as you get into adulthood, it can kind of get sideways on you if you don't watch it. Yeah, it turns from this light, fun thing to a very dark kind of. Really bad for you.
Yeah, because there was when I was in college at University of South Carolina out of high school. That's all I did there was party.
I love partying.
Yeah, and then
so fun.
I joined the Marines. The Marines was a bigger party than the University of South Carolina.
Really?
Because that's all you do. You do whatever your job is, and then you go to the club or you drink. And when I was in there, and But then I started training all the time before I got in the Marines. And, you know, I didn't drink for like another 6 years. I went 6 years without drinking. And then I don't even remember why. I just picked up a beer one time and drank a beer here. And then next thing you know, I'm working in the bar and, one thing leads to another. And, But, once I found out my son was going to be born, I was like, but like I said, I didn't need it. I didn't even really like it. I never drank beer with a meal. I didn't like wine.
Similar for me too. I never drank, like I would never come home from work on like a Tuesday and be like, oh, I'm going to crack open a beer. I never drank like that ever. It was always like to party or like going out on a Friday or Saturday with friends. It was never,
so for me to quit was easy. I mean, I didn't crave it, or even now I never like, oh, I wouldn't mind having a beer. I don't even like drinking soda. Not because it doesn't do anything for me. It just makes me thirsty.
Soda. I'll do soda, but alcohol to me, I was nervous too because I read some stories from clinical psychologists about like if you drink too long, like, especially, I mean, I have a lot of freedom in my life because I work from home in a sales job and like, I make a good living. So there's really nobody watching out for me. It's like I could just party if I wanted.
Yeah, I could do it. Yeah,
and that could be a bad recipe for disaster. Like I could be like your buddy on the motorcycle. I could.
You have to be disciplined.
I could have, get a girl pregnant. I could do something real stupid, and just I don't know. I didn't want to like be that guy later in life, and I just needed to get a handle on it. So, and I also was pretty unhappy too until I found comedy, because I was like, what else can I do? Like,
but hang out in bars late at night and do comedy.
Yeah, well, I don't even feel tempted with the alcohol because I'm having so much fun with the comedy part of it, really. But yeah.
But you see that a lot too. I don't have to worry about that.
Drink.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about that because I don't miss drinking, so I don't. I'm just tired from being up late at night. That's the only negative for me.
Yeah, I've always been a night owl anyway. I usually am up at like 2 a.m. at Cookout drive-thru getting some food or something.
Well, I'll get up early if I have to, but I don't like to be out in the middle of the night anymore.
It's usually just me, but I usually have to get up early too, so I take naps in the afternoon. That's what is.
I take naps too. Yeah.
So since you started comedy again, where do you see yourself? What are your goals in comedy? Do you see yourself never stopping and just continuing to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I like to do it. My goal is just to see how funny I can be. That's my only goal.
Yeah.
I'm not delusional or whatever like that. The path takes too long, to get to certain levels or whatever like that.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
I won't be around that long.
Time is everything in comedy, isn't it strange?
Yeah.
Like it's either time, minutes on stage, jokes, or the time you've been in it that correlates to your success level. There's no other.
Usually, not always.
Usually, yeah. You could be in it for a long time and
not at the
suck.
local level. Not at the local level.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you think that is? Do you think stagnating happens when people...
Well, I think it goes back to what we were saying a while ago about preparation. It's like in sports when I used to teach tennis and golf. We'll say you slice the ball when you drive it. And your answer is, well, I'll go to the driving range and hit 1,000 balls every day for the next year. 360 days times 100, right? So you're hitting what? 360,000 balls or whatever that is for the year. Guess what?
Right.
You're just a really good slicer.
Yeah.
Because you didn't learn any fundamentals. You didn't correct the problem.
Right.
So if you started comedy 10 years ago and you're still doing the same thing you did 10 years ago, you're just good at what you did 10 years ago.
Right.
There's still a lot of people like you've seen them. You can watch them go up on stage and if you didn't know, and someone said, how long do you think that person been doing comedy? I said, about 6 months or 5 years or stuff like that. So it doesn't always, time correlates if you're doing good things
if you're writing,
to be productive during that time. You know,
being honest.
Yeah, I mean,
self-critical.
But you have to get outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That means you got to do things you don't want to do.
Right.
That you could fail.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, I would argue that
you got to move to a new
of
city.
everything you write,
mm-hmm.
or every joke that you take up on stage, maybe 1 out of 100 is a really, really good one.
Yeah.
Keeper, you know,
Uh-huh.
where people are like, God damn, that was a good joke, man.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
If you think about it, all the jokes over this past year that you've tried on stage.
Yeah.
How many are you still keep? How many are you still using?
I don't.
If somebody said, "Hey, I want you to use your, I want you to go up on stage and do your 10 best jokes," you know, how many are you drawing from out of the ones you said? Well, I've only got that. I would be if I was going on, I would only draw from these 30 or these 20 or
you know
what I'm saying.
And the list evolves. Like you get 3 months ahead of where you were. You look back at those. You're like, I wouldn't do any of those anymore.
Right.
At the time, I thought those were my best ones, but now I'm like, those are dog crap. I don't do any from when I first started.
What you do is you keep raising the bar on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you should be doing.
Or I have premises that I still have, but
those people we're talking about don't raise the bar. They leave the bar at the same place.
Yeah.
And once they get to the bar, they mail it in every week.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm good to go. I'm good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So my goal is
just keep pushing.
Just see how
in a
funny
way
I can get.
How funny you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, I kind of look at it as refreshing. Like you don't have to have the end goal in mind. The process is so you can focus on only that. The rest of the stuff.
The process is the most important.
The rest of it can happen or not happen.
It dictates the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You know, some people say, "Oh, I want to be a." Well, I don't even know what a goal of a comic would be now. It used to be in the 90s, everybody wanted to get a sitcom or things like that. Honestly, if you could say you can do anything, I would want to be a touring club comic.
That's what you said?
That's it.
Yeah, Michael Garrick is a similar
That's what
goal.
I'd want to be.
Yeah.
Because they're smaller, you're more intimate with the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
It's cut and dried. There's none of this hocus pocus, you know, with editing and all that stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Like, are you talking about like internet stuff like TikTok? And
I mean,
like
where people will do their specials, but they'll do 3 shows to make a 1 hour special, and then they'll edit the best stuff out of the specials and things like that, or edit the laughter or whatever. It's real in the club.
Do they edit the laughter in specials?
Some of them do it. Some of them edit all kinds of stuff.
I didn't know they edited laughter. I could see editing 3 shows
They'll enhance
together.
They'll enhance laughter.
I could see editing together 3 shows.
Yeah.
Only because you want to. If you put out a special, you kind of want it to be.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying you should want. I'm just saying.
But editing up laughs, I'll be a little bit hesitant on
but
that.
the reason I'm saying is, my goal is just to see how funny I can be, or to be the funniest I can be, is because you can make a special. I've seen some specials lately, and some of them aren't that funny.
Yeah.
Right. Just because you make a special doesn't make you that funny.
Yeah.
Right. We all know people who are funny as shit.
Yeah. It seems like there's
in clubs and on stage. But I don't know if that would. I'd rather pay to see them than to see someone who was in one of those specials that wasn't funny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Are you a fan of Louis C.K.?
Yeah. You know what? I was going to ask you something too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I was pissed off that I didn't know about that show down in Atlanta. And then after you posted it on there,
I should have told you about it, dude.
I didn't know. I'm like, damn. I wish I didn't know about that. And then I found out about the one in Durham the next day after that. It was like a day or two after the Atlanta one. He did one in Durham or Raleigh.
Did you try to go up for that one?
No, it was too late. I found out after the
it's probably sold out too.
thing. I'm like, you know who?
Yeah.
You know,
it was a miracle. I even got tickets to that. There was it was real low key how they announced it. And Matt Addy saw it on a comedy board. In Atlanta because he's living there now. Right, Matt Addy, right?
Yeah.
So he messaged me. He was like, dude, I know you love Louis. I'm probably not going to go to this, but I thought I'd let you know. And I was like, dude, yes, I'm there.
Yeah.
Because after he got canceled, it became, his tour dates became more obscure and less advertised. And
he's got a new special he's getting ready to blow out right now.
I heard, dude. I cannot wait. Do you know when it comes out?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I saw the one that you had to get on his
Yeah, I saw that one too. Did
it
you
was
like
okay,
it?
but he actually rehashed some old jokes on that one.
What?
Yeah, there were some jokes he had done before.
Which ones?
Well, I have to go back and watch it. I could show you. Not a lot, but there was a couple on there of jokes that he had done before.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I know most of Louis' stuff. I thought maybe a couple were similar, but I didn't remember any.
Well, I can't wait to see this.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm like Louis when he puts out a special, it is good. Like to me,
you know who I was going to go see?
Who?
But something. I had to do something else for some reason. I was going to go see Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt, he's great.
He was in Atlanta too.
He was on King of Queens, right?
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very funny.
Yeah.
I actually remember watching one of Patton Oswalt's specials on Netflix.
I've seen all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one where he starts to like lose the crowd a little bit during the special.
Well, a lot of times he loses with his references because he was a literature major.
Oh yeah,
and he throws all these literature references in there. And people were like,
yeah. But he acknowledged it in the special. It was the first time I'd seen a comic acknowledge something like that and leave it in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's good.
So I like Patton Oswalt.
I was looking yesterday or the day before. I just went online just to see who was out doing shows or in this area or whatever like that. And not a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
You know,
I saw
I
Bob
really
Saget a few
I'd go see Bob Saget, but when I saw one for him, I wasn't going to be here.
Okay.
And
yeah, there's a guy you should look up because this guy is he's less famous. His name's Mike Young, and he opens for Bob Saget. And
that name sounds familiar.
He is.
He's got. If you watch Bob Saget's the one special Bob Saget has, at the end of it, he's got a Mike Young doing a set.
Yeah.
At some little. I know. Who you're talking about.
So Mike Young.
Yeah,
okay, so. Yeah. This is the connection I have to Mike Young, and it's very remote for me. But my coworker, Shelby, her best friend is Mike Young's fiance.
Oh, really?
So she lives in Charlotte, and he performed in Charlotte. So we went up there about a month ago, and Mike got us into the show and sat us and paid for our tab and stuff, and it was awesome. I didn't get a chance to talk to him too much. It was the Saturday show. Did not get a chance to meet Bob Saget.
I like Bob Saget.
I was hoping we could meet Bob, but yeah, Mike Young is great, and he has a special called "Who the Fuck Is Mike Young?"
Right, yeah, that's what I saw.
And it's on All Things Comedy, I think.
I saw that. Yeah.
Did you watch the special?
That was the one I saw.
Yeah.
It piggybacked on the back. I swear
he's a funny guy, man.
It was on the back of somebody's special that I watched. I wanted to say it was Bob Saget. It might not have been, but it was someone special. Right at the end, it segued right into it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think he was a single guy out in L.A. for a while.
He was in San Francisco. The special was.
Mm-hmm. So now he's in his 40s, early 40s. He's engaged now to my friend's friend, and so he's starting to settle down a little bit. I think he's coming back to Charlotte soon for a show where he's just headlining.
Yeah, I saw a couple shows in there in 2022 in the spring.
So yeah, hopefully he kind of picks up and kind of keeps building a following. But I like a lot of the young comics that are coming up right now. I don't know if you follow any of them, like Mark Normand.
Yeah. He was here at the Comedy Zone.
Yeah, he was. I got a chance to meet him. Shane Gillis.
Yeah.
And who else? Joe List. One of my favorites. But yeah, a lot of these young guys, I think the thing in common that I really like about them is they seem to be kind of fed up with the whole PC stuff.
Oh yeah.
And they're kind of, they're not political. They're not like right wing or left wing. Yeah. They're just like, we just want to be comics.
Yeah.
We're tired of all the bullshit.
But we
just want to be funny.
That's what it's moving back towards now.
Yeah, which is great. Yeah. And there's all these other mediums, like those guys I listed published their own specials on YouTube. They didn't even get money for them. Yeah. All three of them.
Hey, are we good for time?
Well, Comedy Zone starts at 8.
What time do we have to be there?
Well, you're online sign up, right?
Yeah.
So you can show up.
So we don't have to.
Right.
He just got a list made up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we're about to go to Comedy Zone at 8:00. We can probably cut it in like 10-15.
Yeah. I just didn't want to drive all this way and then walk over there and say, "Oh,
you won't get bumped because you got confirmed on the list."
Yeah.
Yeah. We should go over there. Yeah, in a couple minutes, but.
There's a lot of these newer comics. I've been watching a lot of the. Some of them are new, but not all of them are new. A lot of the female comics, man.
Yeah. Who do you like? Nikki Glazer? She's the one I know.
I like her. I'll tell you one I really like is Jen Kirkman.
Jen Kirkman.
She's got 2 specials on Netflix. She's an Irish girl from Boston.
Okay.
She's like from a huge family or whatever. Uh-huh. She's pretty good.
There's a girl that opened for Louis in Atlanta, and I wish I had her name because I'm not going to be able to remember or look it up right now.
Michelle Fox opened for him at some shows before on his other tour.
Okay. It wasn't Michelle Fox.
Uh-huh.
but she's hilarious. She's like early 30s, late 20s, early 30s, living in New York. Hysterical. Just like kind of seems like she'd be one of the guys if she was, just hanging out, and really liked her. Yeah, I'm excited to see. I don't know if you know Whitney Rayner, but she's one of my favorite like local female comics, and she's
you said she moved out to LA.
She's out in LA now. Yeah, she's doing open mics. I get like, if you look at her Instagram, she's at a new open mic every week. So I'm glad she's sticking with it.
Yeah, it's, the good thing about the internet, especially YouTube, you can access a lot of comedians. Now there's some man. I got a couple albums on my phone that I'll just listen to over and over, like Greg Giraldo. Dude, if you like writing, it's hard to beat him. Oh well, I don't even remember who else I got on there.
What's your favorite comedy movie? Do you like comedy movies?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What's your favorite comedy movie?
Stripes.
Stripes?
I was in Army boot camp when that movie came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't.
Before I went to Marines.
Okay, I haven't seen that one enough to like.
Every time
is Bill Murray in Stripes?
Yeah.
That's right.
Caddyshack too. I mean, there's a lot of them, man. Well, I always, for some reason, Stripes hits me because I was at that same point.
In your
you
life?
Remember how it started? Yeah, where that's what I did. I ended up joining the military.
Okay.
I was like, everything was going to shit and stuff.
Next
like
time
that.
I see Stripes, I'm gonna think of you in the movie.
Yeah, that was a good one. There's a lot of good ones out there. I mean, they don't make them like they used to, though, man. I know you hear it all the time, but they don't make comedies like they used to.
No, because it's too risky.
Yeah.
They're worried about.
Could you imagine if they try to make
backlash.
Caddyshack now? Politically correct or whatever?
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. Yeah, even 10 years ago, there were good comedies in the early 2000s. Like Superbad was hysterical.
That was a good one. I did like that one.
MacGruber. Have you seen MacGruber? It's by the Lonely Island Boys.
Yeah, I know what you think. I was.
That movie is insane. It is so freaking funny.
I'm trying to think of some other ones that came out like right around when Superbad did. I can't even remember, man.
40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That one and Judd Apatow did. He did a couple of them. Like it's just like this. It's just like the Lorne Michael movies or the National Lampoon movies.
When those
it's
guys
the same. It's the same. National Lampoon were all the Saturday Night Live cast.
Yeah.
And Judd Apatow is the same cast. Paul Rudd. What's his name? If I wasn't trying to think, the Jewish guy. Everything.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, everything he says is Jewish.
Yeah.
Seth Rogen. It's all the same people in those movies, man.
Forgetting Sarah
Steve
Marshall.
Carell.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of those movies. And it's funny too. I think that we've talked about this on another podcast, but meme culture. Like now, people will share memes to like get jokes like that. Right. Friends or whatever on Instagram.
There's a lot of memes done on stage at open mics.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people that steal memes.
Yeah.
But yeah, before like the internet, or before smartphones, primarily, like in high school and early college, we would quote movies. As our way of getting jokes to each other.
Yeah.
We'd quote movies in conversation.
Yeah, I can still do
like
dialogue
jokes.
from Stripes.
That was like our memes.
Yeah.
To
Caddyshack, Stripes, Blues Brothers, Animal House.
Anchorman was early 2000s.
Yeah, that was really good. I forgot about Animal House. That came out when I was in high school. That was a big deal when Animal House came out. Yeah.
And Seinfeld. That's my favorite show of all time. Seinfeld was very quotable in the 90s.
Yeah,
I think
still is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you like to do any other form of comedy besides stand up, like acting or doing anything in short?
No, not really.
No? I like it.
I like stand up because it's just like you said, it's autonomous.
Yep.
Completely. You're in charge, but you're the one who answers.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways, but.
Yeah, it is cool to be in control of everything.
Yeah.
You're writer, actor, producer, performer.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you know up front with whoever's letting you go on their stage that you're allowed to do what you want to do. Then that's it.
And you're your own agent.
Right,
most of the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you manage your business.
Yeah, I like it like that. I mean, I don't. The only, you know, when you're doing the other stuff like improv and acting and all that, you know, you're doing it with an ensemble or you know, you have to. I don't like having to depend on other people for my success. Like if something goes wrong and someone doesn't do their job, and then I'm going to suffer too.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, it's a two-edged sword because if I do something wrong,
it's all
doing stand up is all on me.
The blame is all.
But I can live with that.
Yeah,
I can live with that
for sure.
You know.
Yeah, I like that too. That seems to me to be like a frustrating part. Like if you were an actor, like you have to wait for the phone to ring. You know, you have to wait till for somebody to book you.
You
in
have
a
to
role
wait
that
on
fits
them.
You. Yeah. Whereas stand up, even if you're not
you
getting
could go
booked,
stand on a damn corner and do stand up.
Absolutely. Even if you're not getting booked, you can go to open mics. Nobody's going to stop you. And that's only going to make you better and tougher and stronger. I mean, do you think stand up makes you like? This is kind of a philosophical question. I get philosophical about stand up, but do you think stand up makes you like a better, more well-rounded person?
Yeah. Like it works with other stuff though. Like when I'm working out or training and stuff like that. If I'm doing some kind of show or something, and I'll do really hard workouts that day.
Okay.
You know, it just builds confidence.
Okay.
And relaxes.
You'll do a hard workout before your show?
On the day, not like right before the show, but on that day or whatever like that. Or just having the discipline to do the workout gives me the discipline to do what I need to do for the stand-up. Right? But also, too, it could work the other way in other parts of your life. If you're doing stand-up, you can use that and look at it and say, you know, how hard could this be? Fuck, I'm willing to go stand up in front of people and look like an ass.
Yeah.
You know, that I don't even know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make people laugh I don't even know.
Yeah. And
they're not laughing. How much more, you know,
humiliated
could I be humiliated other than that, you know?
Yeah, like the other parts of your life are not that scary anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how
and
I
then
feel.
you can turn it the other way too. You know, people are like, oh man, I could never get in front of people and try to make them laugh and stuff like that. And then they've got some crazy ass dangerous job or they're doing something else. And I'm like, you got to put it in perspective, man. The worst thing that can happen to you on stage is they don't laugh. Yeah. That's the worst thing that can happen to you is they don't laugh.
Yeah.
You know? And so what?
Yeah, it's when you look at what it really is, there's no danger.
Yeah, everybody
there's no real danger. Just
but
hurt your feelings, but it's funny. It is horrifying though. To the average person,
psychologically, it's brutal.
Psychologically,
it's brutal for people doing it too, because you're always trying to be funnier, and you're always trying to figure out how to make them laugh and why they're not laughing, and then it weighs on you. You know, even if you kill, the next morning you're waking up thinking, "How am I going to make that happen again?" Right. So then you start, I got to do better. And then when you bomb, then you're like, "Oh man, I don't want that to happen again." Right. Then you're doing the same thing again the next day, trying to. It's like, you know, Mike Goodwin.
Yes. Yeah, he's the guy that went on America's Got Talent.
Right. We were talking one night, me, him, and the guys at Joint were talking, and he said it exactly. He didn't nail it. He says, stand-up comedy is a gladiator sport. It is, man. It's every time you go up there, it's win or lose. You know, it's all that. It's not next week. It's not yesterday. It's not tomorrow. That's it right there. That's the only time that matters. If they don't laugh right then, you're done. Yeah. Tomorrow you can try to get, but right then is when it happens, you know? And it happens every time you go up there. So it never ends. Yeah. It never ends. It's not like, oh, I did this last week. I'm good to go for the next year. It's like you start over every time you get up
That's
there.
The most frustrating part. And
but
also the most exhilarating part.
It brings you back too, yeah.
It's like no matter how many times you do it, it could still go poorly.
Yeah.
Like no matter how many times.
That's why people get on roller coasters.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. To get that adrenaline rush.
Yeah. I think stand-up's scarier
sometimes
than a roller coaster.
You don't always get an adrenaline rush when people laugh. Sometimes you're just relieved.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Oh, man, that one worked.
Exactly. That's kind of how I feel now. It's like, okay, that worked. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
Fine. But if something doesn't work, I'm like, I hate myself. What'd I do wrong?
I've only got an adrenaline rush a few times.
Yeah.
Mostly it says, all right, that one worked. All right. You know, check that one off. You know, then I'm like, all right, what was that next one? All right, then I'll screw it. They'll laugh at that one, then I'll screw the next one up.
Right.
Like
you could have nine. Damn. You could have 9 jokes work, and you leave thinking about the 10th
like,
one.
Damn.
That didn't.
Almost always, if I have a good set, almost always I'll walk off, and I'm like, something wasn't right. Something wasn't right. And I'll pull that little set card out, and I missed a joke. I forgot to do a joke.
Yeah.
And it'll always be one that I'm like, I'm going up there just to do this joke.
Yeah.
You know, every time.
Yeah.
I guess I should just put the card out there and
why not?
Look at it or whatever.
I usually haven't. I bring notes sometimes, but yeah, man, we can wrap it up here pretty. I usually ask one last question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received or given?
For what?
Anything.
Anything?
It could be life advice, could be comedy, could be coaching, could be whatever.
I guess just life is about the long game.
Long game.
Yeah. You know, you're in it for the long game. So you just got to break it up into little pieces, man.
Okay.
Going along. It's the same thing doing comedy or whatever. If you think you're going to start this week and you're going to be doing your special next week, you're not going to be that long, man.
Yeah.
You got to pay the price or whatever.
Yeah. So kind of keep it in perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah.
Which might not seem like fun at the time.
Yeah.
But it's like people always say, that was I even said this before too. You know, I used to, when I got out of the Marines for a year, I lived in a garage 2 blocks from the beach in Pacific Beach. I lived in a damn garage.
Oh, wow.
And worked I didn't have a credit card. I didn't have a car. I had my bike. And that was one of the happiest times of my life, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, because I didn't. People always say that. You better enjoy this. You're going to look back on this. It's going to be. And that's true, about everything, though. But about now, you have to keep it in perspective. It's like now. Yeah. Now is that time again, like.
Stay in the now.
Stay in the now, yeah.
That's a great piece of advice.
And on stage, too, especially.
Yeah.
You get in your head, and you're thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Or you just killed a joke and you're still thinking about the joke. Oh man, that was.
It's funny.
I was pretty funny on that one, And then you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to say next?
Yeah. It's funny the audience can pick up on if you're in the moment with them or if you're just reciting. It's very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, stay in the now, man. That's good advice. I've never been happier than I have been now doing comedy and meeting people like you and all the people, Columbia, Greenville. That's why I like it too. It's like comedy's super hard, but it's enjoyable along the way, Because
especially when you meet other people that are committed in it, because they know what they understand.
Yeah, it's like
they understand what everybody's going through.
Yeah, with athletes, you feel the same. Your friends that play sports, you go through the same workouts, the same practice, same games. So there's something special there you can understand about each other versus. Yeah. All right, man. Well, good deal. Well, before we officially sign off, where can people find you on your socials and stuff?
On Facebook, I actually have a tour page for this Ironman triathlon theme tour I'm doing.
Oh, wait. So you're doing comedy and Ironman triathlon?
I have a whole show that I do. It's a 40-minute show.
Oh, hell yeah. Shout that out.
It's at facebook.com/lactic acid flashbacks. It's a tour show. Doing local open mics. I'll be in Myrtle Beach on the November 16th for the competition down there.
I meant to message you back. I got put on that show too. Not the same night, unfortunately. They called me that same night.
They have three nights.
Yeah, they called me on that Friday. Actually, they said when they called me they want me to bring 10 people or something.
Oh, you don't have to.
Okay, I was like, I can't bring.
No, you don't have to bring anybody
with that drive.
But they just like for you to
promote it.
Just, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, you don't have to bring anybody.
Okay, good deal.
It's good if you do.
Yeah.
I usually have people show up, but I'm not bringing them with me. I mean, they show up on their own.
Okay, and you got Instagram too, right?
Yeah, Instagram at RTPROR, and Twitter is the same.
Okay.
At RTPROR. But most of the stuff I'll post on Facebook.
Okay, good deal. Well, please follow Robert. Check him out. He's hilarious. Definitely on any time in Columbia or Greenville and that Ironman tour. That sounds awesome. So, thanks a lot for coming on the show, man. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, see you next time, guys.